Hello and welcome to Denton's Den with me, Matt Denton. I've spent over 3 decades working in the UK film and television industry, primarily within creature effects, specialising in animatronic control systems. I've been lucky enough to work with some incredible creature effects teams on projects like Harry Potter, Jurassic World, and many creatures and droids in the Star Wars universe, including BB-8. My career has taken me all around the world, and during that time I've met some incredibly interesting people, both inside and outside of my industry. And in this series I hope to sit some of them down for a cup of tea and a chat so that you get to meet them too. This week's guest is animatronic designer and founder of Epic Inventing, Mark Hunter. Mark has had an incredible career within the film animatronics industry and also designed one of the most advanced prosthetic hands for amputees on the market. Mark Hunter, welcome.
Matthew Denton, lovely to see you, sir.
Welcome to the Den. I'd put you down as a senior animatronics designer, but you've done so much more than that.
That's part of it, yeah.
I met you, I think, at Henson's to start with.
Yeah.
Jim Henson's Creature Shop in the late 90s.
96 it was.
96,
Lost
yeah.
in Space, yeah.
Yeah.
Long time ago now.
It was
Nearly 30 years
It
ago.
was a very long time ago. Yeah, Lost in Space was my first film, my first feature film.
My first big film. I did a little bit before that, but it was at Henson's, but not much, yeah. And that was the first big film, yeah.
Yeah. 96, I started on Buddy. I did 3 weeks on Buddy, the film, at Henson's, and then moved on to Lost in Space. And that was most of 1997, 96, 97.
That was beautiful work, that Buddy.
Yeah,
they did,
I did some basic wiring on it and what have you, but
Yeah, it was nicely done. Beautiful animatronic head. They did a beautiful job on that.
Yeah, Richard Darwin did some of that, didn't he?
Richard Darwin, Adrian Parrish, Dan Burnett.
Yeah.
The 3 I remember. Forgive me if there's more, but that's the ones I remember, yeah.
This is the problem when you do things like this. You mention one name and then you're like,
it's like I'm going to mention all the guys.
Who have I forgotten? So we met at Jim Henson's Creature Shop, late 90s.
And what a place to be, Henson's there.
That was amazing, wasn't it? Yeah.
Man.
I know, it was the dream.
I walked through those doors and I was like, I'm home.
Yeah.
This is where I belong.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
But it was like, it was of an era, wasn't it? And I think we were lucky to get it at the end of an era because I think it changed quite a lot after that point.
I mean, we had 10 years there, which is quite amazing, really, till it shut.
Did you do 10 years? Wow.
Yeah, well, mainly there, but it was like you'd go off and do other jobs, but that was the core. That was like 80% of the work, pretty much. So I was always there doing adverts and loads of films, one after the other, and it was always different, always exciting, always interesting, from Little Dormouse to Dinotopia when we did all those dinosaurs. It was wonderful.
I think actually I only did 3 years there in total, something like that.
Yeah.
So I did Buddy, Lost in Space, and Animal Farm, and some adverts in between. But then I was off. Yeah.
Where were we off to after that? Up at Pinewood?
What did I do after that? No, I went to the game show industry. That's when I moved to Winchester and got into game shows full time, doing Millionaire and all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I remember. I forgot about that. Yeah. What were you doing on that?
It was a good job. So I was doing designing. Interfacing systems to other systems, so like a lot of it was like the contestants would have a buzzer and a lighting on their desk and stuff. So we'd have a system that monitored the buzzers. We would basically supply a computer system that would run the whole show. Yeah. For Millionaire, for example. So one of the things I designed was the audience voting system.
Oh wow!
So ask the audience, and then
how iconic is that?
And Fastest Fingers First, designed that, and then I went all around the world training people. We had teams that went out and trained people how to run the show, and so that's what happened after Henson's. Yeah, I went off and did that.
Wow, dude! If you were that way inclined, you could have so easily cheated on that. Imagine you could have come on then.
And one of the other things I did whilst I was there was I wrote the original database that question setters were given to write their questions into, and then my software would combine all of their questions into one.
Yeah.
And we would hand them over to the show, and then they'd pick, that randomise the questions.
Yeah.
But I had all of those questions on my laptop, all the questions for the first few series.
And of course the answers, Yeah,
and all the answers.
Wow.
So I'd have been the perfect phone a friend.
Oh, my goodness me.
Imagine that.
Dude, imagine if you get one of us in.
Yeah.
Right.
They'd have never guessed it. Like the coughing. We'd be on a documentary now.
The 3 coughs.
Yeah,
remember that one? Yeah.
So exactly. I want to take you back a bit, Mark, because there's what I don't know is I don't really know what your education and your background was, and I don't know how you got started in film. So I want to go rewind back a bit.
Yeah.
And so you've when you come out of school, did you have any idea that you were going to end up working in the film industry and animatronics, or or engineering?
Not at all. My sort of path through school was quite interesting. I didn't realise until I was with my daughter when I was 51. She was being diagnosed as dyslexic, and I'm sitting there beside her going, "Oh, I've got the same thing."
Right.
I didn't realise, and then that made sense of school because the way my brain works is just in moving images. So if I think of something, I just think I can see a moving image. So the moving image is my first language, and then I have to translate that to English, which makes it difficult, and that's where the disconnect often comes because words are my second language. So
right.
they're abstract. They don't mean what it is. So if I picture you in my head, I'm thinking of you. I'll picture Matt, but it's not Matt Denton. That's you there.
I just like the fact that you picture me in your head.
Hey, all the time.
Do carry on.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So there's no words in those pictures. There's no letters. There's no words. There's no sound of words. There's sounds, but it's all moving images. So I struggled at school academically. I mean, I still got through. I got 8 O levels. It was a struggle. I mean, they're all C's. I'm scraping through each one. And then the A levels, I got 2 A levels just. And then I just got to university. But when I got to university, I was making stuff. I did a 3D design degree with Dan Burnett, who was in the industry. We met him there.
Yeah.
And that was what I was good at. I was just good at. I love making things. I was always playing with Lego,
Yes.
like these guys. That
just
was my
like me,
obsession. I loved it when I was a kid. And I remember back to when I was a kid, I had the Lego technical car, so I'd build that, and then I'd just push it off the top of the stairs, and it was smashed to pieces. And then I'd build it differently, a little bit differently, different design, and then I'd push it off, smash it to pieces, and just kept doing that over and over. And I loved it for some reason, and it's almost the same as what I do today.
And your parents never took you to a doctor?
No, they should have done, I think. But it's kind of what we do now: is build, test, build, test, build, test, and learn from the testing.
Yeah.
So that was the progression. The thing I loved doing always was making. I just love making stuff. I found it fascinating. I seemed to be good at it. My dad was an engineer. My dad was a fitter machinist, sorry.
Wow.
So he'd work in factories. He'd build all these thermometers, pressure gauges, injection molding machines. So he'd do all that sort of stuff. My granddad used to work in the steel works, making steel on the Bessemer converter, this huge, massive cradle of steel with an electrode in it which boiled the steel. Kind of a family of people who worked with metal at least.
Yep.
So always guided in that direction. And then after university, I was a furniture maker for 2.5 years, working with these famous designers. A guy called Danny Lane, American designer who made glass and steel furniture, which was amazing. So we'd smash the glass. It was really thick glass. Smash the edge of it and then polish it so it's smooth. So it looked smashed, but it'd be dead smooth, like a wave.
Oh, yeah.
Really beautiful work. And then a gentleman called Fred Bear, furniture designer, amazingly creative, all sort of bent furniture, all different colours, really sort of funky and interesting stuff. Is iconic as well in the industry. With Freddie, that's really where I did my apprenticeship. I learned how to make things really accurately.
Furniture making, and that's what you did at university.
Furniture and interior design.
Right.
Yeah, and then but I could use all the machines. And then when I came to London, 93, 94, Dan Burnett got me an interview at Henson's, and I remember just as soon as I came in, I was like, "Oh man, I belong here. This is it. This is great." And then it was, so I started, as a junior on that, and then gradually progressed till I learned it. It takes years to learn.
Where'd you come from, Mark? 'Cause obviously, our viewers, I know you've got a northern accent.
Workington, Cumbria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cumbria.
Proud Cumbrian.
Nice part of the world.
Yeah, right beside the Lake District. So every weekend we were in the mountains walking. And when mountain biking came out in the early 90s, we would buy our bikes then. We'd buy mountain bikes like it was like a Muddy Fox.
A Muddy Fox, I was going to say.
Muddy Fox, yeah. And we just we didn't have even have bottle holders. We'd like tape a bottle to the bike and a Mars bar, and we just, I mean, it's different then because you're younger, and just go off for the whole day.
Amazing.
You know, and there's massive mountains.
I remember being on a campsite and somebody had a guy there, a young lad, had a muddy fox. I'd never seen anything like it. And I was like, "What's that?" And he said, "It's a mountain bike." I was like, "What's it do?" And he's like, "Goes up mountains."
No way.
I was like, and I remember him riding up this little slope. And he put it on the bottom rings. It had three front rings, didn't it? And he put it in the bottom one, and he went up it like he was just. I was like, "What is this madness?" Like a granny ring, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. I love mountains. They're probably my favourite place on earth.
Yeah,
you know, I just love being in the mountains. You know, I love being in wilderness.
Yeah.
Just absolutely love it. There's such power in the mountains. You know, they're amazing places. So.
You did a big trip to Nepal, didn't you, recently?
Himalayas,
yeah.
Yeah.
How was that? How far was it? A long walk or something, wasn't it?
Well, since my sort of mid-20s, I've been fascinated by Buddhism. So I've read a lot about Tibetan Buddhism and Zen Buddhism, and I've always wanted to go to Tibet, you know, before. Well, it would have been nice to go before, you know, 1950s, because it changed a lot when the Chinese invaded. But Bhutan is kind of like Tibet was. It's like a country by itself, very isolated geographically. You know, the top of India. But it's a sort of very pure sort of Buddhist country. You know, everybody's that's the state, that's the national religion, and they measure not gross national product, they measure gross national happiness. So the royal family in charge just asks everyone, you know, you happy? What would make you happy? How do you
really?
feel? Yeah, and it's you know, so it's very sort of lovely place to be, you know, and none of it's flat. It's all like that. It's all just wow, up or down.
You need your muddy fox.
Oh yeah, exactly. I could have done with it. So we did a trek across the entire country.
Wow.
End to end. I mean, it's quite short. It was like 420 kilometers or something like that, 400 kilometers.
Wow,
but it sounds all right, but it was like that.
I was going to say, what's the altitude gain? It must have been ridiculous.
I added it up once, and it was well over like 100,000.
Really?
It was ridiculous.
What?
Yeah. Well, it was over 36 days, so you're spreading it out. But some days we'd be going up for like 5 hours, 6 hours uphill.
Wow.
You know, you're gaining, I forget how many, 8,000, 9,000 feet. So you'll start at, you know, 4, get up to like 14 or something. You know, but yeah, I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Amazing. You do have one of the most inspirational stories, I think, of most of the people I've met within the animatronics and creature effects communities, and that is because let's just talk a bit more about Henson's. When you were there for 10 years, you did several films. So when would you have left? Like were you there still when they were doing Hitchhiker's Guide?
Yeah.
You were still there then?
Yeah, me, Dan, and Rich ran the mechanics on that.
Because that was the last job at Jim Henson's Creature Shop. So
it was, and it was some of the best work we did in years as well. It was so good.
Well, that's the London Creature Shop, not obviously the LA one is still going. But
and Garth Jennings, who directed it, was such a joy to work with. Love that guy to bits.
It was and it was a really nice film for them to go out on as well, because there's some lovely stuff in it. You know, some lovely animatronic stuff.
We did all those. We did the Vogon aliens, and I was talking to my friend who's a CG guy. He said, "I was sure they were CG." I said, "No, it's all really thick foam. We get like 1.5 inch thumb, and there's massive motors to pull it on the inside." Because we had free reign. It was me, Dan, and Rich running it, and we're like, all right, what do we want to do?
Yeah,
let's just make it as the best we can do. You know, the best work we can do, the best look. You know, the best sort of really sort of sort of ugly creature. You know, big jowly faces.
Yeah.
Oh, it was wonderful.
At that point, I was on Potter, and I remember people saying, "Oh, you know, they're doing Hitchhiker's Guide at Henson's," and I was a little bit jealous, even though we were on Potter doing a great thing, having a lovely time. It was
you had a long stretch on that,
I did Azkaban and Goblet of Fire.
Yeah.
Then after Goblet of Fire, I think the creature effects department went from 120 people down to more like 50 or 20. I think about 20.
Wow.
And it just they were
smaller.
just making maquettes and small rigs and stuff and prosthetics. There was not much animatronic stuff from that point.
Yeah, because I worked on the third one. Which is
Azkaban.
So much fun. But back then it was big crew for the creatures. Yeah, it was like 150. Probably, like you said. Yeah. And that was brilliant. I loved working with Nick, and that was a really fun job. You know, building. What did we do? The hippogriff mainly.
The heap of grief, as it became known. Yeah, I do a whole talk about that. And he had a nickname for the hippogriff, which was the heap of grief. And we also had a nickname for the werewolf, which was the Y-wolf, because we should probably never have made it.
Yeah.
But that's another story in itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
The heap of grief, though.
The
that
heap
was
so much work. I mean,
I
so
know.
much, so many mechanics, and a difficult thing to build mechanically. But the one, I mean, there was two of them, wasn't there? There was one in the pumpkin patch, and there was a standing one in the
we did
forest.
The pumpkin patch. We took up to Scotland, and where did we film that? On Glencoe. The side of a mountain in Glencoe in the summertime is about May, June. I think we were up there filming it for 5 weeks. It rained every day, and when the rain stopped, the mosquitoes came out and ate us to death. Yeah, it was horrific. It's just horrific. The mud. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and it was like a full real feather suit hippogriff. So
how are you keeping the mud off that?
Yeah, every time it rained, people would run in with umbrellas to try and cover it up. But whilst we were filming that, Guy Stevens was in charge of building the standing hippogriff back, which we shot in Virginia Waters, where
I was there for that,
where Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter, first meets the hippogriff and he bows and all that. And do you remember? Oh, there was three. There was another one. There was another rig that Phil Ashton was doing, and the other guys were supposed to rear up.
That's right.
Third.
That was the taking off. As he was getting on the back, and he was the beginning of taking off before it switched to CG.
Yeah. So then, so the standing rig that was lovely. It would stand on its own. The front leg lifts, the back leg lifts, the tail would work, the wings would unfold, and their whole full head movement. Really lovely rig. Could do everything but walk, and we spent 2 hours. They said, right, bring in the hippogriff. So we spent 2 hours rigging it, because we had to dig trenches and bolt it through the floor and bury the cables and all that. And then the standing came in, and Alfonso was like, okay, so he's going to be stood here, Daniel will be here, and then the hippogriff takes a step forward.
It's like, no.
And I remember everyone going, what? What? Takes a step forward?
You didn't tell us that.
Have you not just seen us burying it in the ground and digging poles in and stuff? And it was literally like, well, he can't step forwards. It has to step forwards into the shot. And it was to poor Nick Dubman trying to explain that this, they'd seen it. They'd signed off on it.
Oh, my goodness.
So then we had to
dig
it, take it all out. Right, so 2 hours getting in, strip it out, 30 minutes, got rid of it, and it ended up being a beak on a stick, replaced with CG. Yeah.
That's so sad, because that was beautiful work.
That became like the thing. Everyone wanted to come around and visit Creature Effects at Leavesden Studios, because they'd come and see the real hippogriff, and we did lots of Make-A-Wish foundations and things like that.
I remember even in the forest, in what's it called, Virginia Waters, was it? Yeah. There was once it was all set up, kids would come onto set who were with family and go and thought it was real. And they were coming up to it like, wow, because it looked bang on. It was so nicely done. Well, the girls did a beautiful job on the feathers. It
was lovely. I had a little routine worked out with Nick Dubman, because when he had visitors to the workshop, we'd get the hippogriff fired up, and I'd stand back on the controls, on the animatronic controls, and he'd bring them in, and he'd say, "Oh, this is our hippogriff," and then you have to bow for a hippogriff, and I'd bow on the controls, and the kids would be like, "Oh my god!"
Wow.
And then eventually they'd see me, and they went, "Oh, he's doing it." So then I had a pre-record system on it, and I'd press play, step out of the controls and walk over, and I knew the routine. I'd say bow again, and it would bow, because I knew the timings. And then by the time they'd be like, "Oh my goodness, he's not doing it." Then I'd sneak off, get back into the controls, and go back live again. And it was a really lovely. But that was part of the thing that they ended up making the museum, the Harry Potter Museum, and then they rebuilt that hippogriff, and it's now in the museum.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, that was a great job to work on.
It was the heap of grief.
The heap of grief.
Yeah. One of the things that stands out to me from working on Harry Potter with you is, which I think many of us talk about, is how tidy your desk always is.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Because everyone else's desk is a complete shambles of tools.
Yeah.
And Mark is incredible, because he'll get the tool he's using out, and maybe one other, and he'll use those tools.
I keep a little stack, not too many. But I do tidy up a lot.
I don't know. I've got one tool out. I've put that one down. I've chucked it. I can't find the one I want.
What I used to do back in the early days, I used to like time people and be like, "Steve, can you pass me an adjustable wrench?"
Are you talking about Steve Wright?
Yeah, bless him.
Yeah, God rest his soul. Steve Wright had the most. You've gone from one end of the scale to Steve Wright, because his bench was unbelievable.
It'd take him like a full minute. I'm like, "Steve, it takes you like 60 seconds, and if you do that like 300 times a day, That's
Yeah.
300 minutes.
But
It's a lot of
his
time.
bench literally looked like someone had emptied out his entire toolbox.
Like a pyramid.
And you'd go, have you got an
Oh.
M3 tap, Steve? And he'd just start rummaging through bits on his bench. Yeah,
Oh, bless him.
I know. But so that's extremities. That is extremities.
Yeah, one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
So I'm on the other extreme, So, but yeah, I just find it the easiest way to work. I mean, I suppose it's personal choice and
Yeah.
wherever you're comfortable with. But I just find it like, thin nose pliers, pair of tweezers, next drawer scalpels.
I just wish I could do it. Do you think you could do it for me in my workshop? No.
Might take a bit of work.
Yeah.
You're organised though,
All I'm
because
saying-
I remember the electronics guy before you.
Oh, yeah.
No names and no companies.
No.
And it was so refreshing when you came. It's like, oh, thank goodness, Matt's so tidy
Really?
compared to the last guy. Yeah.
Blimey, I don't know who that was,
No,
but
no,
we'll have a
I
chat
shall-
about that afterwards.
I shall-
Yeah.
Can't mention names. Yeah,
No.
that was. You were a breath of fresh air. I remember.
Crikey.
I was like, thank goodness.
While we're on the subject of animatronic heads, what's probably your favourite one that you've built personally so far? The one that
Yoda.
Yoda.
Yeah, we did a really nice.
Did you build
We-
Yoda?
No, not for you guys.
Oh.
Not for the films. It was with Dave Barkley.
Yeah.
Hats off to Dave Barkley, legend of film animatronics. Wonderful guy. Me and Dave built Yoda
For Disney.
ahead for
Disney.
Disney Imagineering. Yeah. So what we built was like a prototype for the parks. So we built a Yoda, the whole control system, and it looked amazing. It looked so good. But the way Disney works is each company is a different franchise. I might get this a bit wrong, but each Disney is a different company.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to basically build something and then sell it to each Disney. And it didn't quite make it for some reason. I'm not sure why. Probably because of some sort of internal business stuff. But regardless,
Yeah.
it was beautifully done. Yeah,
Some
Really
of
liked
the
them.
some of the best stuff ever made you never get to see.
I
Never
know.
makes it to film,
Sometimes,
doesn't it?
yeah.
It's so annoying.
Sometimes
It
gets a
happens
bit frustrating.
all the time. You broke out of animatronics, and when you got to, I think I've got this right. When you got to the end of your time at Henson's, you said, "I want to go to LA. I want to drive a Mustang, and I want to learn to surf
And
and start
Yeah.
something new."
Yep.
And so you sold up here. You
Yeah,
moved out to LA. Tell us that
Yeah.
story.
Animatronics was amazing for 8 years, but then it started getting like it was. I know this sounds silly, but like another dog's head or another the same creature I've done before, another squirrel, another dinosaur, and I was kind of like, oh well, I can do that again and do a variation and make it a little bit as good as I can, like 10-20% better, whatever that's going to be, but there was no great challenge anymore, so I started getting mentally checked out. I was like, because I like kind of a difficult challenge because it really gets me engaged and gets my mind going, and that kind of carries through the whole day of the week, and I really get a buzz off that. So I was like, all right. And then I sat down with a good friend of mine in Chiswick, and he said, all right, if you could do anything with your life you wanted to do, what would you do? And I said, I'd move to LA, I'd learn how to surf, and I'll make a bionic make a bionic hand for amputees.
Yeah.
Because I built so many different hand mechanisms, cable mechanism, hydraulic, pneumatic, push lever, And then he said, well, why don't you do it then? What's stopping you?
Yeah.
I was like, nothing. Nothing's stopping me. He said, go on then, do it. And I was like, all right, I will then. All right.
Fine.
That was it, I
Fine.
will.
Yeah.
So that was it. That was kind of the clarifying moment, really. So I thought, all right, I'm going to do this. So my buddy lived in LA. He was traveling to Australia for a film for 3 months. And he gave me a ring and he said, oh, do you want to look after the house for 3 months? And I was like, that's it. That's my ticket to LA. I'm going.
Perfect timing.
I mean, I went all in as well. I sold my house. I didn't tell him this. I sold my house in London, put everything in storage, and came over with everything done. Just two bags of stuff, luggage.
That's the brave bit, is selling up here and moving out there.
No, it just felt right. I always trust my gut.
Yeah.
It's really amazing tool if you can, try and see the sort of clarity. If you can get some clarity on stuff like that, and I've often been good at that, where I can just go that. And as good example is the Mustang you just brought up. So me and the same friend were walking just past a garage dealership one day, and we saw, and I wasn't even looking for a car, and we just walked in, and right in front of me was a silver convertible 1967 Mustang, and I said, "That's my car." I recognised it straight away. I just knew it was my car, and 2 hours later I was driving down the road in it.
Brilliant.
It's amazing. We'd starting to study Buddhism from the age of about 26 when I met my cousin Peter. it really made sense to me, that sort of philosophy, and basically the philosophy, mainly of compassion, really. And I thought, well, how can I use my skills as best I can to help people? And we do in film, of course. There's tremendous help because everyone watches film, but everyone enjoys them.
Yeah.
So that's tremendously helpful and useful to society. But I thought, I want to do a bionic hand because there was a need as well. Back then the hands kind of went like this. They kind of, the fingers were set, the thumb was set, and they kind of moved. They were, useful, but I felt like with the technology we've got now and what we can make, why not just take it a step further and make it fully articulating? All the fingers move, the thumb move properly.
Yeah. So we're talking about something that can literally just do like the C shape and grab. And
yeah,
could any of them do like this kind of thing?
There was one that came out as the I-limb hand. That was 2 years before. Was it 2 years before ours? That was the first one.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it wasn't out when I started doing it.
Yeah.
And then when we finished doing it, it was out. But then we put ours out, and there's kind of that. Those are the two. So there's the I-limb, which I think is made by Ossa now, a company in Iceland. They make it, and we make the BeBionic hand. That was my hand. Well, I rented a place 1 block from Venice Beach, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Henson's. Like Henson's, people used to describe us when we came on set like the Addams Family.
Yeah.
Just like this really oddball bunch of people, but it was just wonderful because it was such a creative, interesting bunch of people, as you know. And that's a bit like Venice Beach.
Venice is quite an interesting place. Yeah.
What I love is when people can genuinely just 100% be themselves and don't really care about what anybody else thinks. I think it's so admirable. I really admire that with people. Like, good for you, man. Just be yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's wonderful. So yeah, Venice Beach. I'm in the garage downstairs.
Right.
And back then it was a full arm. We had the we had a motor for the bicep. All the motors for the fingers were in the forearm. There were these big actuators like this big, which was basically a Swiss motor, like a Maxon motor and a screw basically, and a nut which pulled it up and down. And that was the finger articulation. We had a wonderful. One thing I did love. We had a radius and ulnar rotation. It looked exactly like that. It was so nice.
Oh yeah, so you could see the muscle kind of moving over
the two bones folding over each other. But fast forward, I didn't realise that's not really helpful for most amputees.
Right.
But it looked amazing at the time. So that's amazing. So
your animatronic side kicked in.
It's
got to look real. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you have to make it fit to people. What's more appropriate to people, and that part of it was definitely not that helpful, really.
Okay. How long did you take to get to your first working prototype, and where did it go from there to get to a company that was actually now still selling? I know you're not part of the company anymore. You moved out of the company, but
we had meetings with companies, and they said, "Oh, this is great, but you need to make it into a hand. You need to get everything inside the hand." And I had everything up here. I had everything for the fingers inside the top of the forearm.
And you're going to lose all that space, and where have you got to fit it into literally
the
palm of the hand?
The palm of the hand. So I was like, wow, how's that going to happen?
That's a challenge.
It really was. And then a good friend of mine, Peter Shivako, showed me this little parallel linear actuator, with. And he said, "Why do you do something like that?" And I looked at it. And I remember this day quite vividly because I was making a hand ready to go to see a company. And he showed me this little linear actuator. I said, that's about the right principle. I should make that. So I made some of those. I changed it that second. I'd been planning it for weeks. Like, I'm going to make this at the workshop. I'll mill this. And as soon as I seen it, it was like, switch. No, don't do that. Do that. Like your intuition, like that's way better. So follow that. Drop everything. Follow that. So that was the principle which fitted inside the hand. It was too weak, but the ones I made, but we could prove with better technology, we could prove with existing motors from Maxon and Portascap, I think we used as well at the time. It can be strong enough, and it can be fast enough, and it can be reliable enough. So we kind of had to put this whole package together and prove it. And then we went back to them, and we found a company, RSL Steeper, HSL Steeper in Leeds, who said, that's perfect for us. We're expanding. We're looking for a product. We want to be more competitive, and we need something like this. And then I turned up at the right time, which is often the case in business, just hitting the right time for everything. And we worked together for a year and a half, from 2008 to 2010, getting the technology I'd put together, the design I'd put together, making it strong enough, fast enough, reliable enough. put that all inside a hand, and then 2010 we released the BeBionic hand.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and it's been a massive success.
And it's still going
Thankfully.
now.
Yeah. 15 years later, still.
Yeah.
It's gone better than ever. It's even better now. Yeah. So it's made by Otto Bock now.
Can you remember the first time you ever saw one on an amputee, like what it was like and all?
Yeah, I never sort of took too much credit. Well, I didn't take any credit for it really. Not quite sure why. Maybe that's some. It wasn't the reason I went into it.
Right.
You know, I could have become quite famous of it, and I sort of. This is actually the first time I've spoken about it online. I've never spoken about it. I did one paper interview in the Guardian in 2010.
Yeah.
That was it.
Okay.
You know, and if I had an agent and pushed it, could have become quite famous. But that's not why I did it. I wasn't interested in that. I just got to work on the next thing.
That's why you're an inspiration.
Yeah.
But I mean, you still deserve credit for it. And you deserve acknowledgement for it. But I can't imagine. I've always said, like, you, when I explain you to friends, I'm like, oh yeah, Mark Hunter is Animatronics, and then he went off and did something proper with his life. You know, like you made a difference to people's lives.
Well, so does Animatronics, though.
Well, you know, we make rubber puppets, but you're actually making a difference to how people's lives function on a daily basis. You know,
yeah.
And that's.
I mean, the way I look at it is like film can help millions of people for a bit.
Yeah.
And that's really good. What I do helps thousands of people for like years and years.
Yeah.
It really helps, changes their lives, really. It helps them function better. I think there's, I don't know how many, maybe 12,000 people wearing it.
Yeah.
Which I'm really happy about.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I made it, and that's the joy of it. I just think, I mean, to be honest, I very rarely think about it that much.
You should.
The occasion when I do, I mean, even the kids don't know that much about it.
Really?
It's got, oh, Dad made a hand, yeah. It's sort of like, you know, maybe it's part of not, I don't know why I'm like that, but that's kind of the, yeah.
It's also a little bit of a British thing. We're not very good at blowing our own trumpets.
No, you just often do the next thing, a little bit.
To define the kind of person you are, well, there's one thing. Whilst all this is happening, you and your partner go off to Russia and adopt 2 children.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that in itself is a major thing. And you spent like 3 months there, 2 months there, or something like that.
Yeah, 3 months total. Yeah, it was quite a lot.
Like with a lawyer
a lot.
Yeah, and that in itself is like on top of designing a bionic hand and setting up a company. And
my wife was working in the adoption area. She had a website set up, and she was helping lots of kids get adopted.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was her thing back then. And we travelled around Ukraine for quite a bit, 6 weeks, I think. Nothing clicked into place. Nothing felt right. I mean, we were working. My wife was working. I was supporting her.
Yeah.
No kids clicked into place. No great, feelings happened. Went to Russia, and with a Russian-American lawyer. It was extremely helpful. And the Russian people are just lovely. Thank you to all the Russian people who helped out. They were amazing, so nice people. And I'll never forget it. We were in Perm, just before the Ural Mountains in Russia, almost like the central-ish of Russia. And the door opened, and a little girl walked in, and I recognized her. Never seen her in my life. I was like, there you are. I recognized her.
Amazing.
It's amazing. I'll never forget her. So that was Elena. That's our eldest. She was 3 at the time. And then same in St. Petersburg. Met Xenia. Oh, my goodness, there you are. And Xenia was 1. And then went through all the paperwork. We got a lot of help from the lovely Russian people. My wife did, 12 months of paperwork, pretty much. A ton of paperwork.
Yeah.
Appropriately, of course, because you need to be careful.
Yeah.
And then we brought him home. Yeah, which was, Gregor, when was that? What year are we on now? 2011.
Well, they're all grown up now.
That was straight after the Bionic hand. Yeah, we finished the Bionic hand.
Oh, was
like,
that?
all right, let's go
Okay,
get the kids.
Right.
Where are they? I don't know.
Amazing. Just one challenge after another.
Yeah,
and
it
then
was, yeah.
And then after that, and I know we can't talk about it much, but you ended up in a situation where you needed lawyers, and you couldn't afford them, so you taught yourself law.
Yeah, that was
more or less, right? Is that?
That was the most traumatic experience I've been through.
Yeah. It was nothing to do with the kids, by the way. Just
No,
so,
oh yeah, it's nothing
Yeah.
to do with that. It was like a
It's a
business
business
thing
situation,
where somebody was trying to rip us off.
Yeah, but I mean, that's bonkers. You taught yourself law, and you went to court, and you won.
Yeah, that's the short version.
The short version.
Yeah. I sat down and talked to Beth, and I was like, "All right, what are we going to do? We don't have the money to fight it, but I don't like bullies. And my granddad used to box in the army, so I stand up to bullies. I'm like, all right, let's have it then. How can I do this? It's like I'm dyslexic, but I didn't know then, but I knew writing was extremely difficult for me. But I thought, well, just you just got to do it. Just work on it. Work on your defense." So that was the start of it, 2011, and it went on. I know it was longer than that. When was it? It was 2000. It was a bit farther on, 2014.
Right.
So we're a couple of years into kids, and then it took 2 years. It was the hardest 2 years because I was getting up at 5 a.m. I did this wonderful job with Lee Romare Studios doing like the Yoda and all these other great jobs, really nice jobs. That was 2 years. So I'd get up at 5 a.m. I'd get back at 6, and then I'd work 3 hours every night. And I did every single weekend apart from one, because I thought I was going a bit nuts one weekend for 2 years. But it was that or bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, come on, keep at it. So did it, and the defense was about that thick, massive.
Yeah.
You know, stating exactly why. And there were many, many reasons why we were right.
Yeah.
It was just basically a big company trying to bully you.
Yeah. Amazing.
You know, but if you're on the side of the truth, you know, the law protects the rich, but if you can get through it with accuracy and truth, you can win.
I think you've got to be a certain person as well. You know, like I say, you're incredibly determined and
Cumbrian, a bit nuts up there.
Cumbrian,
Cool.
stoic. You know, that takes a lot. That takes a certain time. I don't know whether I could have done that. I probably would have walked away and got steamrolled. But
I mean, these days it might be different. But it depends on your like if you're fighting for your family. I was fighting for my wife and kids.
Yeah, I guess. So
we're going to be broke otherwise.
Of course. Yeah.
So,
you're now doing prosthetic fingers.
Yes.
And you've gone from the hand and you've gone, right, what about amputees who've just lost a finger? And you're now fitting everything into one finger. It's
finger amputations are 5 or 10 times more prevalent than hand amputations. So, but fingers, you've only got like one bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get it in the end bit as well, but you need a connection with, you know. So, but the way I've done it, it's just in that bit there, just in your.
So it's a single actuator, and then obviously linkage to join them, to
forward
do
and back,
amazing.
So,
and the electronics in there.
Yeah,
incredible.
Which I've got here actually.
Yeah.
Do you want to show it?
Well, yeah, have a look. Let's have a look.
That's the finger there, which will be That's the basic structure of it.
And so how does it attach to the hand that's left then?
So there'll be so you basically have like a palm piece which holds it on, and then this is that knuckle is attached to the palm piece. Well, the core of it is basically make it super helpful for people and ultra reliable. That's the biggest thing. You know, imagine having the best. You know, imagine having an Italian car from the 60s.
Yeah.
Amazing, gorgeous, but just make it work.
Yes.
And if it's not working, it's not useful. It's just like, it's not working.
So you've got an Italian car with German engineering.
That's what we need, yeah. That's that's the hope.
Yeah. We shipped the Mantis to LA a couple of years ago, and I needed some ground crew. And one of my business partners, Anthony, came with me, and you were my ground crew in LA, which was good fun, wasn't it? We ended up at Mars, a Jeff Bezos event, which was just bonkers.
It was bonkers. It's so much fun. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, you had all the fun. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had a lot of fun, but I was staying on site in the resort, and then the ground crew had to stay off site in a different hotel.
Yeah.
But all of the support crew, which are quite a lot of people, were all going out and having full-on parties every night.
Yeah, we went dancing and everything.
Yeah, I saw the dancing. I saw your dancing.
Oh, God.
It's like a combination of karate and
so
dance
bad.
moves.
What happens when you get drunk?
I know. So I couldn't, because it was really sunny, I couldn't see, and the display kept overheating. So you made a sunshade.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought it was just going to be like, I don't know, a bit of card, but it came back with this incredibly crafted, it was all black, you could gaffer tape and cardboard.
Yeah.
fitted perfectly.
I didn't
of
even
course
have any
it did.
tools.
Didn't have any. I know.
Yeah.
I know. You just whittled it
It's like,
out of
come
a
on,
tree,
come on.
but it's still on the mantis now. So
That's the key to film. You just make it what you got.
I know.
Make it happen.
My version would have been awful.
Oh no.
No, it would have been, and I was
Well,
quite
enjoy
embarrassed
Mantis.
when you gave it to me. I was like, oh, this is really good.
Oh no.
Why
Well, the
don't
Mantis
we do
is
it?
so good. It's an amazing piece.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
and everyone loved it. You see, the Mantis was so good. Everybody got gravitated towards that, and
yeah. Well, it was there for the eye candy, I think. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
there was tech there that was way superior. Like
There's some great space tech, wasn't there?
Incredible tech. And the
Yeah.
Mantis was just the eye candy. So, yeah. We're getting near the end, but I've got a series of questions that I asked everyone. So,
Yeah.
going back to movie stuff now, being that you've been working in the movies.
Yeah.
Favourite movie character?
that I've worked on, or just generally?
No, just any. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be.
It's got to be. What animatronics? Or
No,
not?
no. It could be
Oh.
any character at all.
Ooh. Well, if it's animatronics, I'd choose Yoda because it's just the icon.
Okay.
It's the icon.
Well, one of my
film.
questions was, what's the best animatronic ever? But so do you think Yoda is the thing that you'd? I mean, it's not necessarily technically. Your one
No.
might have been, but the original one wasn't a technical animatronic that much. But
Yeah, I mean, it was more sort of groundbreaking, really, because
Mm.
it was, because it hadn't been done before. It was all handmade, difficult to make with the technology they had back then,
yeah,
and the machinery, and they didn't have 3D printers, they didn't have this or that. So probably that. So what?
Okay.
Best
well,
character in
best
film?
character in film, yeah. Just like, for example, mine is Indiana Jones. I'll give you an example. So
I used to like Steve Austin, BeBionic Man.
okay, there you
That was
go.
my
There you go.
favourite- That was my
Brilliant.
favourite show, yeah.
Perfect.
And
yeah.
he also did. I don't know if it was the same character. Was it the same guy, the actor who did the Colt Savers, the unknown stuntman?
Yes, Lee Majors.
That was my favourite as
Yeah.
well. So those
Yes.
two together.
I loved.
And I'm like the unknown inventor, so I'm
Yeah.
kind of tied into that.
I
a
loved the
little bit.
Fall Guy. The Fall Guy was.
Fall Guy was.
just-
Yeah, that's
yeah.
what it was called, wasn't it?
Yeah, the
yeah,
Fall Guy.
yeah. So, but yeah, probably Bionic Man.
Yeah.
Because that was iconic growing up.
I wanted his truck as well, the Fall Guy's truck.
You could just jump.
And then that leads me on to which character would you most like to play?
Of course, yeah. Steve Austin. Bionic
Steve
Man.
Austin. There you go. There you go. Okay,
Yeah.
done. Desert Island film. So this is a film that you're on a desert island. You've taken one film with you, so you
Wow.
could ruin this film for the rest of it because it could be your
that's
favourite
hard.
film, but you could ruin
Yeah.
it. So
That's a good one. I like 2001 Space
2001
Odyssey.
yeah,
Because that just gets me thinking. That's one I loved growing up because I just found it so interesting and so sort of philosophical.
Yes.
Like, what is this? Why is there a baby at the end?
Have you ever watched it in the cinema?
Oh, I wish I had.
I watched it when they
Yeah.
re-released it in 2001 with Oscar Wright.
Oh, wow.
We went to the cinema,
Yeah.
and man, that's a hard watch when it's full screen.
Oh, is it?
When it gets to the trippy bit at the end,
Yeah.
and it's just like, whoa! We were
Yeah.
just sat there like, God, and it's just massive screen,
Mm.
this bombardment of vision and sound, and we were, you can't trying to look away for a bit. It was
Yeah.
it's full tilt.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably say that's the one I've watched most, I think, because, reading about Buddhism, when you get deeper into it, what is the purpose of life? Why are we here? Are there parallel universes? What is birth and death?
I think that's a different podcast, Mark.
I know, sorry, I could get super deep into all that in the philosophy.
Yeah.
But I found that fascinating. So that's kind of why, 2001's like the film that takes you in that direction.
I want to come to once you've been on this desert island for 10 years. I'm going to come and find out what that's done to you.
Exactly. I'm sick
10
of
years
this
out,
film.
just completely lost it. Is there anything
what I
that
love.
inspired you earlier on in your career before you started in animatronics? I know you kind of fell in with Dan Burnett and stuff, but is there anything back then,
Like a
when you were at
person?
university, a person, a book, a
Yeah,
fellow, anything
my
like
granddad,
that?
yeah.
Your granddad, yeah.
My granddad first, because he taught us loads of stuff. Like he taught us how to play golf, and then from that, taught us how to play golf when I was 11. And by the time I got to 13, I was good enough to join the club. So I played golf from 13 onwards, and then I got good enough to play on the youth team, the junior team, which was great fun. I was only like towards the end before I went to university, and I've always played golf. I like the getting out of the mind stream basically, and just getting into a movement.
Yeah.
So golf was big. My granddad taught us how to play that. Martial arts have been big. I mean, kung fu. Granddad took us to karate and roller skating. He took us roller skating. He did everything with us, and then he stopped at karate. He was like, you guys can go. But he was just lovely. My granddad Sam, lovely bloke.
My granddad was a big inspiration to me too, and he did model making and painting. He took like loads of hobbies in his later life, and he'd do them and master them. Photography,
Nice.
painting, model making, and then just leave them, just drop them. Do
Oh,
it, and then
really?
master it, and then drop it.
Yeah.
But he was the one who, when I was building my little model kits, like my 1:35 military miniatures,
Yeah.
Tamiya ones, he was like, "Well, you've got to paint the underside as well." And I'm like, "No one's going to see it." He said, "Yeah, but we know, don't we?" So,
Oh, wow.
and he teach me dry brushing dirt and weathering and stuff.
Oh,
and
nice.
I used to love all that stuff. But,
That's
yeah.
interesting,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's good to have inspirational.
We've had a
people,
similar path with Lego and
I know,
making stuff, yeah.
models and stuff. I know, making stuff. I just like making stuff. We both said it. We like making it. We don't actually like taking it to production. We were talking about that earlier. We like cracking the nut,
Crack the nut.
and then walking away.
Yeah.
And
I'm
then
done. Thank you very much.
All right.
On to the next one.
Yeah. So the other question is favourite tool in the toolbox.
You know what I love? I love the 3D printer.
Right. Okay.
You know, I had a Formlabs one, which is
Yeah.
brilliant. I've got a bamboo printer at the moment. I've had other ones. But going from not having 3D printers and not having CAD at all, I mean, it only came out in 99 or something,
Yes.
CAD, I think. You know, I think we had AutoCAD 2001.
Do you know what? I had it in my apprenticeship in like 1990. 91.
No
Yeah,
way,
we
they
had
had it back then?
Yeah, we were on 386 computer, really hard to use. You had two screens, and it was
Yeah.
a terminal in one screen and the graphics display in the other screen.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
really hard to use. But
Yeah.
yeah.
The BeBionic arm I did was all 2D CAD. I did it all in AutoCAD on the computer. You know, which is quite hard because you can't make it move. It's just flat picture, you know, 2D, nothing else. And then when SolidWorks and all the other ones came out, fully moving 3D, I mean, that was just a game changer. Like, wow, you can move things, you can get it in the right position, and then make it super accurate. So that with the 3D print is just a game changer.
Yeah. The final big question, obviously we're in Devon, and everyone talks about when you come to Devon, cream teas, things like that, you know, but we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there.
Clotted cream.
Yeah, but cream and jam and all that, what goes
Ooh.
first? We're not going to go there. We're going to go cheese on beans or beans on cheese.
Oh, controversial.
I see.
Oh, cheese on beans. 'Cause it
Cheese
melts over the top,
on
doesn't
beans. I see.
Oh, do you do cheese on
beans on cheese?
Oh, I do
Because so Lee Townsend was a cheese on beans kind of guy. But
Yeah. Did you change him?
No, he's like, I said, like,
Right, Lee.
put your cheese on the potato so it starts to melt, and then you dump your beans on top, and then it all double melts.
Oh,
And
no,
they
you
ba-
got a potato underneath. I thought you had
baked
toast.
potato. No, it's baked potato. It's
Oh.
baked potato territory.
Ooh. I think I'd still do it on top out of habit.
Okay.
But I think I might need to.
So butter, beans, cheese.
I think I need to try the cheese in it and then the beans on
so
top.
someone else come up. I'd mentioned this the other day, and someone was like, "Well, obviously you go cheese, beans, cheese." I'm like, "Oh, you double cheesed."
double
cheese.
That's
yeah.
even better. There you go.
Yeah, I know.
Bit of butter on the inside.
Yeah,
It's good for you. A lot of good stuff in potatoes.
I know. Mark, there's some dice next to you here. You
Right.
get to roll a dice. Let me grab this thing from
Roll
over
one.
here.
Right. And it's a 3.
It's a 3. You got the dolphin magnet, fridge magnet.
Hey!
Spared no expense.
dolphins.
Literally no expense.
I like dolphins.
I like dolphins.
Well, we go
so-
surfing, you see them quite often in pods. Yeah, they're lovely.
So everyone who comes on the show gets a fridge magnet, but you have to roll a dice because I can't want to just give them. You know, it's all different.
you.
They're all different. You don't get to see what the other ones are.
Well, I don't want to because I'm happy with my lot. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah,
Much
for
appreciated.
dolphin.
I'll just stick that on the fridge. £1, 9 pence.
I know.
Yeah,
It's
thank
from
you.
from a local store I don't talk
beautiful.
about.
Oh, yeah.
So if
Dolphins.
people want to find you, do you have socials?
We have the Epic Bionic website, which is
Yeah.
the Bionic Finger website.
Okay.
So I'll be on there.
Epic Bionic. I'll put a link to that.
EpicBionics.com.
Yep.
Bionics with an S. That's where the Bionic Fingers are.
Yep.
And that'll be the next revolution in prosthetics.
It's been fantastic having you here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Matt.
And really appreciate you taking the time to fly all the way from LA
Just for you.
just for me.
Just for you.
Thanks,
Cheers,
buddy.
mate. Thank you,
Cheers.
mate. I appreciate you, Matt. And
Yeah.
hats off to you, man. Legend
man.
of film and the most wonderful
this
guy
is,
ever.
This is all about you.
Oh, come on.
This
I
is
need to
all
give
about you.
you give you some credit too. It's because it's lovely to see you, mate. It really is.
You
Always
too.
lovely to see you.
You too. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for everything.
Cheers.
It's the first podcast I've ever done. That's cool, isn't it?
If you've enjoyed this video podcast, then please do like, share, subscribe, and leave your comments and feedback. You can find further information on this episode's guest in the description section, including links to their social media. Bye for now.